Hi,
we are live.
everyone. Welcome to Sembang Carlist. Today's our episode 4. For those of you who are new here, you have no idea what you have been missing out. Okay, just kidding. Well, you can always follow us at Carlist.my Facebook and watch all our Sembang Carlist episode at the video tab. Okay, back to today's topic, which is one of the popular requests by some of you. Best family cars in Malaysia and what our panelists have to say. We have KY as a recurring member from episode 1 and Jim returning from our previous episode. KY, say hello to our audience and introduce yourself a little bit.
Hi guys, my name is KY Gun. I'm the Group Sales Director of Carlist.my and Carlist.bit. Been in the market for 15 years already, as I've previously mentioned, and I've been looking at car market, used car market, recon car, as well as new cars as well. Happy to be joining you today.
Jim?
Oh, okay, my turn. So, my name is Jim. Real name not Jim, but I've been a content producer and just writer about the automotive scene in Malaysia and abroad for about a few years now, 6 years, I think. So, I have a few opinions here and there, and I hope that I can help with whatever questions that our audience has. All right.
Right. So back to what's the best family car for you? There's so many options out there, like large sedan, MPV, or SUV. That's the constant question. So I would like to start off with Jim. SUV seems to be the most popular segment recently. But is it recently? Is there a timeline before this of their growing popularity in this market? Could you tell us a bit more on that?
Okay, SUVs, like if you look back at SUVs, right, they started with the Range Rover, Land Rover, like Pajero. Those are the things that you think about SUV. But nowadays, there's a lot more SUVs, and people want to buy them as their everyday car. If you come out of college and you want to buy like a nicer car, you pick an SUV. If you want to have a family, you pick an SUV. But it is quite a recent thing because maybe I think with the MPV, the vans and the usual MPVs, maybe there's a certain image of it being very domestic, and SUVs represent more of a adventurous side. So if you could combine an all-encompassing vehicle that could be your everyday vehicle, family vehicle, and occasional adventure vehicle, then SUVs fit the bill. It's quite a recent thing though.
So is it like based on what you've shared with us, it's demand by the consumer, from all stages of life?
It's half actually, because it fills the role of the everyday vehicle very well. But also because car makers are very good. They engineer their entire lineup now because they saw this developing market for SUVs, and so they engineered the entire market, the entire lineup to be SUV specific. Like you look at Mazda. Before this, there was only a few SUVs, but now there's an SUV version of the Mazda 3. There's a bigger SUV like the Cx-5, the Cx-8, the Cx-9. Honda, the BRV, the CRV, the HRV,
Wow.
Toyota.
That's like a lot.
It's a lot. So, at first there was demand, but then the automakers got wise to this demand and tried to manipulate us into wanting SUVs even more.
Oh, so then it becomes like a chicken and egg. Started off with demand by consumer, and then it's further develop over there. Just create the urge over SUV.
I think it's more like a market layering, right? You have one vehicle from the same brand for every single need.
And they're all SUVs.
Yeah, that's perfect. So since KY wants to actually share some insight, I know you when it comes to the car sales in this market, you are the expert. You're 15 years in the market already. Do you agree with Jim's input? Any further that you would like to share in terms of SUV popularity seems to be one of the top for family car?
I think like what Jim said, SUV has always been around from when I was a kid. I still remember Pajeros was a really hot thing. But moving on, I think in the past 12 to 15 years, we do see a rise of MPVs, and that rise is particularly pronounced when you look at all these Estimas, all the recon cars that are coming in, and we have manufacturers in Malaysia as well coming up with more and more MPV models. Being a father myself, I recently just saw MPV, but then I had an MPV when my kids were really little. And that is also because it's not by a choice that I like MPVs. It's also by the practicality of what the MPV could provide, and I think this is something that a lot of people perhaps they would look into, especially when you start a young family, you have young kids. You need to consider having like car seats. You need to consider having in-laws or helpers with traveling with you. So you do need that space.
Okay, do share with us you're referring to consideration in terms of like car seats and space and all that. What would be your preferred choice? I mean, speaking from a father of two, I'm pretty sure you have your own experience. Like, what happens if your kid spills milk or drink in or vomit in the car? Like, do you have that kind of consideration at that point of time when you first have your first child?
So I think like every father or every parent, what the first thing they'll do is when they have a child, they'll childproof everything. When you say childproof, it's like let's say in your house, you will try to like put foams on all the edges, make sure that they don't bump themselves or hurt themselves. Same goes on cars. Like you will try to put like you try to get leather seats, for example, because they're clean, they're easier to clean. Because kids do spill milk, do vomit, and a lot of stuff might happen. So yeah, for my choice is when I had my car, one of the first things that I look out outside from the space is actually the seats. Like, are they leather seat? Are they easier to maintain and stuff like that? And even carpeting, I replaced the original carpet with other materials which are easier to clean as well.
Yeah, I would imagine it's such a mess if you actually have material that is very difficult to get any stain off, especially you cannot predict when your child is like feeling sick or, you know, accidents like that.
And it happens a lot of times.
I remember
So
that when
materials are really important. Yes, James, sorry, you were saying.
Yeah, I remember that. It's a good tip. Like the leather seat stuff, yeah, that's what I think too. But I didn't consider that I might need to change the carpets as well. It's a good tip.
Okay. Right. So we are talking about like the materials that we look at in terms of car seats. Let's focus a little bit more of like the type of options that's available when it comes to family car. I mean, car seats could apply to any of this, like large sedan versus MPV versus SUV. I would like to hear from you guys. What are the pros and cons in this each segment? Jim, you want to start first?
Okay. So I just family car these days. Actually, any car can be family car actually, because if you have a small SUV of 5 seats, you may have more headroom, but you don't have that much more knee room. Maybe you have a bigger boot, maybe not. So even like a Myvi could be a family car. You have 5 seats, you have 4 doors, 5 doors. Yeah, it could be a family car. But then you come into the question of whether you need the extra space in the boot, whether or not you want to go like Balai Kampung or something. You want to have everyone seated down and all their stuff at the back. What do? So you're going to buy a bigger car with the same number of seats, but just more space. But then you go into the larger SUV or the MPV, and this is where things get serious because you want that third row or like a collapsible third row. So you can actually sit people like maybe you like KY sit a helper or your in-laws and also carry their stuff. Then it becomes serious. But the thing is like my parents, like, so when I was a kid, my parents wanted to buy a new car because me and my brother, we were kind of happy with just the normal 4-door sedan. But then my sister came around and they wanted to buy a Mazda Citra, basically a Kia Carens back in the day. And they wanted to buy that, but then the dealer called and they said like they have a promotion for a Mazda Ria, a 7-seater, a bigger one, and got this good deal or whatever, so they bought it. Later on, like literally 1 year later, they told me, I regret buying that car. Why? Because it's so big. It's like, I know, but you have 3 kids and everything, but we never use it. We don't go to KL, we don't go to Penang all that often or whatever. And then we live in Penang, and my mom drives that big MPV Nazaria all the way in the little roads. So it was quite tough.
Exactly. When you move around in
It really
Penang.
depends on what you want.
Okay. What about you, KOI? Some pros and cons between these 3 segments. Large. You can always start off with your preference. I can tell from your face that you already have large MPV or SUV.
So I think when I had my first kid, we were actually in a 4-door sedan, and I think there were a lot of struggles with the 4-door sedan that you have never noticed until you have a kid. And that is particularly especially when you have like the child seat. And as child seats, the bolster is actually quite high up. And when you have to navigate your way through with your toddler in your hand, trying to fit them in and trying to strap them in, and you keep bending over. And for me, especially, I'm quite a tall person, so it's quite difficult. It's quite difficult to do it. And then also the struggle of having to sometimes move things around just to accommodate your family members. And with the child seat, you just taken one seat off, so you can't really have another 2 person sitting in the back. You only can have one. So that is also one of the reasons why I actually moved into the MPV. And to have an MPV, I think it is a space, what Jim said, space which makes it a lot more convenient. So anytime anyone who needs to get a ride, or even if we're going out with friends and family, so everyone can just pop into the car and we just travel together. And I think it is better for my experience. But I think after having it for a while, I do think that my wife, like what Jim said, was actually complaining a little bit about the size. It's actually a bit big, especially when you're not traveling as a big family. Sometimes, my wife would prefer to have a smaller car.
This is exactly like what Jim brought up just now. It's like if you actually need to bring your entire family going to like alleys, especially like, the tourism spot in Penang, then you see the cons there. But I always believe like when we look into family cars, right, the first thing that every buyer would think of is like when I have a child, when I have this and that. I still think a large sedan is actually a good family car because speaking from my own experience, I don't have kids, but I do have like elderly people that I live together. So if anything, that is SUV, especially when you have a family member actually on wheelchair, SUV might not be the best option for them to actually, move around. So sedan it's still. So I guess at the end of the day, it really depends on your need, your family size, at what stage that you're expanding your family. That would be the best choice. With that, right, about fuel consumption, will there be any difference depending on the size? Or you have 8 people sitting in an MPV, you might need to have more petrol because of the weight versus 4 family members in a large sedan. Jim, say something.
Something.
Yeah.
So fuel consumption is always it's always dependent because let's say you have a Arus, right? 1.5 liter, same engine as a Myvi, basically. So it's a 7-seater. You can fit 7 seats in there. Sorry, 7 people in there with all this stuff. But with that small engine, it's not going to be very good on road trips. It's going to be unless it's like flat road or downhill, it'll be okay. But I think it'll struggle on the highway to maintain 110 or even around there. That tunnel, the Menora tunnel between Ipoh or whatever, right? Going up that hill in a fully loaded Arus is going to be challenging. And because the engine has to work so hard, it's going to consume more fuel. I mean, no matter what they say in the brochure that it achieves an average of whatever kilometers, it's going to consume more fuel. And whether or not that amount is going to be a problem for you, you're going to be surprised at how little that amount of fuel can go. That's up to you. So with MPVs or SUVs, I would say try to get something that has more power if you can.
Right. Do you share the same opinion, KY?
I used to own a 3.5 liter Alphard. So I actually went for the bigger size engine. But I think the version that I had wasn't the most fuel economical. I think it was actually quite bad. I think, I'm not sure what the brochure is saying, but from my own experience, it should be about 15 to 16 liters per 100 km. So that is actually on the high side compared to a lot of cars. But it's actually nice to drive. It's really nice to drive. But I mean, even if you run a small engine, if you have a big family, you have a lot more weight. I mean, considering like an average size person might weigh about 60 kilos, try times that by 7. So you got 760 kilo people in there, and no matter how fuel economical, you still end up using up more fuel.
So that matters. That matters.
So the other part is, I think in terms of fuel, we also need to look into the newer cars that is offered today in the market, where they have really good gear transmission. So some of the cars come with CVT gearbox, some cars come with 8-speed, 7-speed, with the more gear ratios and better transmission, actually saves more fuel and give you better performance as well. So you don't really need a big engine nowadays because even a moderate size engine with a really good transmission kind of complements each other.
Yeah, this kind of like bring us down to like from fuel consumption is just one of the budget area that we need to consider. But what about like overall price point? With Hari Raya around the corner, everyone is thinking of Balik Kampung right now. Hopefully, this will be able to do that. But what are some family cars that are harga mesra rakyat in your opinion, especially for young families? Like some of the like models that you could think of, KY, like any suggestion?
Well, harga mesra depends on like budgets. To some people, harga mesra could be a Alphard. To some people, harga mesra could be Auza. But these are the two models that I highly recommend. Whether or not you are looking for a larger size MPV, Alphard, the 2.5 liter with the new CVT transmission, that is awesome. You can go 7-seater or 8-seaters. To me, I prefer 7 seats because I only got 4 members in my family. But if you are on a smaller budget scale, you can actually look at Auza because Auza is actually a fantastic car to have.
Okay. So I think it's time for us to show like what would be your preferred family car? I'll start off with Jim first, okay? Do you want to share a bit of your preferred family car?
Okay, so I guess we assume that we need a family that is bigger, right? Let's say I'm someone that needs an MPV.
You can picture yourself that you're going to be a father soon, and you have triplets or something like that. Just imagine that.
Okay, so I won't pick maybe the Alpha. The Alpha is nice and comfortable, but I think I would probably choose Mazda Cx-9 because, like, the main compromise with family cars that you have to sacrifice something. Like right now, I drive a coupe. I know when I have a family, I would have to sell it off or not drive it, and I would miss the sportiness of the drive. I would miss the looks. But with the Mazda Cx-9, at least the engine is very powerful. It looks good. It's very luxurious inside, and it can seat 7 people when I need it to be. So I think it's perfect. But a bit pricey lah, not so mesra raya.
But it's your preferred, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Then what about KY? You don't have to imagine, I'm sure you have your preference.
Yeah. Well, I will go with the car that I bought. So obviously that is my choice. Then it will be Alphard, a 7-seater Alphard. But if I were to buy again, very likely I would go for the 2.5 liter, the current model. So these are the 2014, which are actually great. If you look at the screen right now, 2014, 2015, these are this is actually the model before the latest one. It's actually the previous model. But these are really great cars. I mean, they come in great specifications. A lot of them come with leather seat, pilot, second row, and then full theater entertainment system. So the best part about my experience with my Alphard is that, sometimes, as you know, when you got kids, right, kids will tend to cry a lot when you're stuck in a jam. So you get to entertain them with like the rear monitor and play a bit of cartoon. But at the same time, like to entertain myself, some of these vehicles are equipped with the theater system, which you're able to set a different the different audio at the front, which means I can listen to my Spotify. At the same time, the kids are watching cartoon at the back.
Wait, but with the audio, everything will not overlap, will not interrupt each other. Like
it will slightly overlap. Because it's still in the same car. But then the rear speakers will be playing the cartoon. The front speakers will be playing my Spotify.
I see. So is one of the consideration point as well when you have a family car. Okay, we have someone actually asked a question from our audience. Is resale value one of the consideration as well by Chong Sun Sing?
You want to go, KY?
Yeah, sure. I'll go.
Yeah.
Well, we are Malaysians. Resale value, of course, matters. So I think resale value has always been a debate for a lot of people. But if you look at the current market today, cars are. I mean, you don't really see like a very straight line. Like I think 20 years ago, where my dad would probably say, "Oh, you should buy Proton, you should buy Toyota, you should buy Mercedes. These are the cars that you will not lose money." But the thing is, in today's market, every car would lose money. It's just a matter of how fast. But for Toyota, I think with Alpha, I think it's pretty much a safe choice. You still get a pretty good result. I think if you look at the prices for a 8-year-old car, is still worth about 120,000, which is not too bad.
Okay.
It's probably like you lose like 50% over 8 years, which is
That's like keep the value, man. That's how it is.
Yeah, so like for Jim, is resale value one of your top priority, or space, material, comfort? Which one comes first? There's so many consideration points.
So if I pick the Alphard, that means resale value would be one of my high priorities, because if I buy a Honda or Toyota, most likely it'll still retain its value, or at least most of its value compared to its competitors. But with my choice, the Mazda, they have good resale value. It's just not as high, or the rate of depreciation doesn't seem to be as low as the Toyota or Honda. But it should be considered. I mean, because a family car, if you're buying a small family car, then you might want to consider resale value more, because if your family grows, then you would need to sell that car to get a bigger SUV, a bigger MPV. So you got to think about how long you want to keep the car and whether or not it's worth thinking about resale value, and if that is stopping you from getting a car that might be the perfect one for you.
Okay, so all in all, family planning is so important, because you don't just figure out like, this is my first child and this is the car that I'm gonna get and that's it, because it will.
Planning, should I have a kid? But I gotta buy a car. Oh no!
But it's more like, should I have a kid? How many do I want? How big will they? And then like you have to think about starting off like the material of your car seats, and then go down to space. And then like they need entertainment. Then after that, suddenly I feel like expanding my family, resale value come into the picture and all that. Yeah, so actually a lot to consider. Okay, but what about in terms of like comfort level? Like we talk back about the popularity segment, which is the SUV, right? Do they actually offer the same comfortness, like what every family would expect them to be at this current situation, like the latest SUV in the market? Maybe like Jim wants to actually help me out with that.
Sure.
It's
comfort levels. People, I think this is the
specifically case. Specifically on SUV, yeah, because it's the popular model right now.
One of the things people might think is that SUVs, because they're high off the ground, compared to like a lower, like normal car, like a Myvi or a Golf or whatever, right? They think because higher off the ground, that means more comfort, more space for the spring to compress. But really, it's not the case, because you can make any car comfortable. Like the Alphard is a very comfortable car, but it's not that much higher off the ground than a Golf or any other car. It's about how the manufacturer wants to set up the suspension. It's the tire choice. It's the size of your wheels. It's all those things. You can make a comfortable SUV. You can make a really uncomfortable SUV. You can make a comfortable MPV or an uncomfortable MPV. So if you are okay with the comfort level of a certain car, just go for that one. It doesn't matter if it's an MPV or a normal car like a Passat or whatever, or an Accord, or an SUV. Doesn't matter. It's all the same.
So, okay. What about KY? Like, have you come across any family cars that, out of your surprise, that you didn't expect that it's a comfortable car, but it just like impressed you in such a way? Have any experience?
I think it is a balance between style and comfort. Of course, the more aggressive styling you want, meaning that you like a car which is sitting like lower on the ground, or like thinner tires, larger rims, then of course you sacrifice a lot of comfort as well. So to me, I think what car did I find surprisingly comfortable? X70.
Especially to get it. Oh wow, okay.
X70.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm an MPV guy, but the car that I find surprisingly comfortable is actually X70, which I actually took. I had a ride in X70, sitting at the back seat, and the car was actually really nice. It's smooth, it's quiet, everything feels like rigid and firm.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so everything feels like rigid and firm, and it's pretty sporty. The tires are not big fat donuts, but the car is actually very comfortable.
No, like I wanted to bring up that I went on the preview drive for the new X70 with the dual clutch gearbox, and yeah, it's comfortable. It's quite smooth on the road. At high speed, it's quite smooth. At low speed, it's quite smooth, and yeah, it's a good price point. So the X70 is definitely, it's popular already, so everyone knows that it's a good offering.
Do they have like leather material as an option?
But it's so comfortable.
Do they have leather material as an option? They do? Okay.
Yes.
So they sort of like check all the consideration that we discussed earlier on. It's comfortable. It's one of the popular segment. They have a leather option. Resale value? What about that? KY, you wanna?
I think resale will be fantastic. Look at the demand. I think it is a proton comeback, definitely, with the X70.
Okay, so we have another question from our audience, Yuan Gitman. What's the average service cost for a 7 to 8 seaters? KY, you wanna share?
It depends on. It depends. Okay, so if you're talking about buying a used car or recon car for that matter, let's say if you're buying, it all depends on how old is the car that you're buying and what is the condition that when you bought it. Let's say if it's a recon car, something which is less than 5-year-old, call it 3 years old, I think the service cost wouldn't be as bad because let's put it this way, oil filters are not that expensive. A regular 4-cylinder engine will take up about 4 liters of oil. That's all, 4 to 5 liters of oil. Then it's only your minor wear and tear stuff. And for 3-year-old car, you hardly get any wear and tears. But on the contrary, if you're looking at a used car which is slightly older, maybe close to 8 or 9 years old, that is the part where I would highly recommend the buyers to actually have the car inspected and checked. By having the car inspected and checked, at least you know what is the true condition of the vehicle, and are you willing to commit into that kind of relationship with the vehicle. Meaning, if the car is older, that means that more things will wear. So it's whether or not the cars have been properly taken care prior, or things are being hidden and not shown until you bought it.
Okay, so that actually plays a vast difference in terms of the service cost. That's on the used and recon car. But what about new car? Jim, feel free to actually just jump in if you have any like add-on. Like new car in terms of like average service cost for a 7 to 8 seaters. Any idea? What would be the average cost?
There shouldn't be any drastic differences between a 7 or 8-seater or 6-seater car than any other car, really, because they have a lot of these manufacturers, they use the same engines in a lot of cars. Having an extra row of seats at the back doesn't impact anything to do with servicing, because the engines are the same, the transmission is the same, the drive lines are the same, and those things are the things that need to get serviced. And those things are all like across the lineup, it's very similar.
Okay, right.
Unless maybe you have a bigger engine than every other car in the lineup, then of course, like oil would cost more because you have to have more oil in the engine. If it's let's say you buy a 4-wheel drive over the 2-wheel drive, maybe you have to service the differential and more to do with the drivetrain itself.
So the seats doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It depends on like your engine. Yeah. Okay. Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, I would like to add also. So based on experience, it's also very important for car buyers to actually research for the car, because certain cars have their Achilles heel, meaning that things that will break or quite well known to break. For example, like my case, a 3.5 liter Alpha. I think gearbox is one of those things that are quite popular that they'll actually break. So that would cost quite a bit of money if you to replace it. So it's best to check out those things first before when you purchase the car and do your research.
Okay. So 7 seaters, I would assume, is the usual like 2 rows car. But what if like it switched to 3 rows SUVs for big families? that service cost is like, I believe it's a whole new level, right? Like,
It's the
do
same.
we have that doesn't matter in that sense? Like, yeah. So
Same.
there is a 3-row SUVs in the market, right?
Yeah.
Any
But
example?
same cost. Adding one row, like what Jim said, doesn't change the cost of maintenance because there's just a row of seats.
Okay, then in that case, for those who have not decided to plan their family expansion planning yet, try to get as big as possible, like a 3-row SUVs. Don't care whether you're gonna have your first baby first or you're gonna end up with 5. I would like to know whether there's any recommendation in terms of like a 3-rows SUVs in this market right now. Jim, you want to share?
3-row SUVs or MPVs or both?
MPV? Yeah.
Okay. So MPVs. So the first one you have is like a crossover, which is actually, well, it's sort of an MPV with some crossover details. It's the Arus. That's the starting point. You have 7 seats. Up from that, which I think is a big step up, which if you can afford to get a Honda BRV over an Arus, I suggest you do that because it's got a CVT gearbox. Its reliability is more proven. I think it's like Honda does packaging the best. Like,
Okay.
Their seats can go in all different ways. And you can really extract the most use out of the space inside. But above from that, price-wise, you have Mazda CX-8, you have Cx-9, you have Nissan Serena, you have the Grand Carnival from Kia. So you have quite a lot of choice. Alphard. Okay, what else do you think I'm missing out?
Yeah.
Hyundai Starex. That's actually a very good choice as well. Especially for large families. I mean, if you got like 4 or 5 kids, Starex is really good choice.
But if I were to narrow it down, okay, let me just narrow it down, okay? If your budget is around 100K, less than that, I would say the best one to get is the BRV.
Okay.
If you go above 100K, maybe into 200K territory, the Mazda Cx-8 or 9, I think, is the best in class. You can also, in fact, but if you don't want an SUV, you can go with the Nissan Serena, which I think is the best in class.
Okay. Anything to add on KY side?
I will just add on to, because there was quite a gap, so it's like below 100K, then suddenly like almost up to 200K.
Yeah.
So at slightly above 100K, I would go for the X70 Premium. That would be my choice.
Okay. Yeah. So we're currently seeing in the screen like some of the recommendation that you guys mentioned earlier.
Yep.
Yeah, we have a lot of options. Carlist.my, Nissan Serena. That's one of the good.
That's a great car.
Okay. Right. So
what else do we have?
What else do we have? Like,
I think of a lot of choice. You got a lot of choice.
Let's give another choice.
And if you want like 5-seater SUVs for a family, there is just a lot of choice. Like what KY said, the X70 is a good price point. You can get a new X70 for around 100K, a bit more than that, and it's a fully featured new SUV with all the new tech features, all the safety features that you would want.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Then here we are showing Honda CR-V.
Yeah, CR-V is always the great one. A bit higher price-wise than the X70, but you get the Honda, all the Honda selling points lah.
Okay. Right. So we have discussed like the multiple consideration and also shared with some examples like what would be the preferred choice from our panelists. I have one last question direct to KY. For those who are currently thinking to buy a car in this current sensitive moment, not knowing whether the showroom or service center is operating, can they still buy it?
Actually, they can. So if you go to Carlist.my now, what you notice is there are a lot of listings with videos that can actually show you a lot of videos as well as a large image, like 21 images, to show you the actual condition of the vehicle. And we have also spoken to a lot of dealers, and they are actually taking bookings. So what they will do right now is they'll take bookings, they'll proceed with loan. Right after the MCO is lifted, you can go and view the car, and then you discuss from there on. So what is important is right now they're actually making sure that the loan is being processed first, so you do not waste any more time by the time buyer is near. So this would be very helpful for consumers. But important point, very, very important point, whenever you pay booking to a dealer, pay to a company account, don't pay to a private sales agent account.
Yep, that's a PSA for everybody. Company account.
Yeah, that is very important, because every time when I see like there's a scam post in Facebook involving someone paying deposit to an unknown person, or someone who actually printed a fake name card representing a company, those are usually victim of scams paying to a private account. So never do that. Always pay to a company account.
Thanks for highlighting that, KY. Yep. So I think I'm gonna actually end our show today. So for those of you who is considering to start a family soon, or already looking for a car that carry multiple family members, that provides the feature and functionality of what you are looking at, you have heard from the expert yourself in terms of the consideration point and some of the models that they recommended. Do go to Carlist.my to look into the options available that suits your need while stay at home. So when this is over, go out and get your dream ride for your family. I would like to wrap up today's show with a greeting to our Muslim brothers and sisters to start the divine season of Ramadan with a heart filled with love and peace. Selamat berpuasa, stay safe, stay healthy. See you again. Thank you, Jean.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.